That's right, naval battles in Bannerlord. The mod Bretwalda aims to bring the world of Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord into the Viking Age as you join into one of 6 unique cultures within the tumultuous time period of 868 AD. Across a rising Alba, waning Dalrida, emerging Saxon and Anglo kingdoms, a growing Norse presence, and an old friend in the Romano-Britons of Cornwall and Wales. In this video today, we're going to be doing a mod showcase, discussing some of the amazing features that the mod development team of Bretwalda has come up with. They've shared with me a ton of exclusive footage, screenshots, as well as a general roadmap of how they plan to roll things out. So a massive thank you to the team is in order. We'll first discuss naval battles and the naval combat system as a whole, showing off some small fights and coastal raids. Quickly show off the map the mod will be using, then go into the troop trees for some of the cultures, talk about the roadmap for the mod, and then close our video out talking about some other features and what have you. Before we get started, I do want to just be clear that this is a work in progress, so anything that looks a little off, inaccurate from a historical standpoint, or has a janky animation is because this is all pre-alpha footage. Also, the projected public release of the mod depends entirely on the growth of the mod team, Vanilla Games development, and other factors. So there's no real timeline for launch, but the team is really excited to add more layers through the many phases of their development. If you'd like to get involved in the development of Bretwalda, I've provided a link to their Discord, as well as a Google form you can fill out, as the team is looking for plenty of people, especially C# programmers, 3D modelers, and musicians. You can find those links in the description and pinned comment. But let's get started with talking about naval battles in the Bretwalda mod. So we're going to start off on the campaign map. We're going to go to the edge of the water and just dive right in. So this is pretty exciting, right? Because this shows us that this is entirely achievable within the scope of the game. So if this becomes an official edition, that's even cooler, but right now we know it can at least be a mod. So we jump into a combat and we're going to have 2 of our smaller size ships meet each other and duke things out. Now there are multiple size of ships. We'll get into that a little bit, but this is just the 2 smaller ones for now. And this is totally comprised of your party. So if you have individuals with bow and arrow, they will start shooting as these ships come close to one another, and then just go right into it, right? Just hacking and slashing with a spear and axe, getting right into the melee of it all. And as you can see, you just pluck people apart. So this is very rudimentary at the initial stages, right? We're just kind of, they're just kind of establishing that this can be done. And it looks great for the most part, right? This is like a really fun little quick siege battle. Let's see this expanded to a larger ship. So right out the gate, you can already tell this is a massive ship against the smaller size ship that we had before. My men have a much larger gangplank to jump onto, and there is a lot more going on. We have a bigger party. I've got archers that are shooting into the enemy. My men are jumping onto that ship and just kind of clearing it out. And then again, I go right into the fray. Now I say my men, this was footage that was given to me. I am not actually playing the mod. It is not released yet to do so, but you can see that this is a really awesome way to have naval battles brought into Bannerlord in a pretty quick, brutal, and concise manner. I really enjoyed this quick method as far as just kind of getting its feet wet, no pun intended. Now, before we go into more information about naval combat, I want to talk about the map here for Bretwalda, because as you can see, this is a total conversion of Bannerlord. You're not going to be playing in Calradia because there's quite a limited amount of water you can really traverse in that game. In this, you're going to have the entire British Isles at your disposal, with a further expansion upon that in the roadmap that we'll discuss. But you can see here that you'll have plenty of opportunities to use the river systems and the open ocean to traverse the map with a lot of the different ships we're about to talk about. But I really wanted to illustrate again that this is a total conversion mod. You're not, again, going to be playing in Calradia at all. You will be here, and that is why the ships we're about to talk about will make a lot more sense. And this is the Naval Combat document that the Bretwalda team sent me over to kind of discuss how some of the boat classes work and some other mechanics here. So from Naval Combat, Bretwalda's Naval Combat system adds fully functional ship versus ship combat to Bannerlord. Interact with other parties on the high seas, purchase new ships, and use them in coastal raids and ship-to-ship combat on the open ocean. Boats are purchased at any major city with access to a waterway. Each boat has a different speed and effectiveness in combat. So you see that we've got a number of different boat classes here, and there are limitations for those classes, right? So when we look at the rowboat and the barge, we are limited to traversing rivers, but the Nar, Cog, and Longship, we can traverse the open ocean. What we just saw a little bit ago with a big, huge long ship and that smaller ship, that was a Longship versus a Nar. So just to give you a sense of scale, how these things scale up. If the Nar is kind of dead center between the rowboat and barge, and then the Cog and Longship, the Longship is that big daddy at the top end. And there are a lot of really amazing, there is a lot of amazing artwork that has been poured into making these things really come alive. And you have really cool dockyards and shipyards where you buy these things. I'm sorry, docks and shipyards where you buy these, and they just kind of remain in port. It's a really cool functionality that they're building into it. It's not just simply you own a ship and the ship does some stuff and that's it. Like it's actually really integrated fully into how the mod operates, because you have naval transportation. Bretwalda's naval transportation system makes every corner of the map accessible. Cross oceans to conquer new shores, sail up rivers to strike deep into enemy territory, or follow the coastline to travel faster and more effectively. Suitable boats, class Nar and above, are able to travel across oceans. Upon reaching the shore, you must first find a suitable location before disembarking and seamlessly continuing your journey over land. And there's a lot of other features for the naval combat that are coming, undecided features as it were, so craftable boats determined by culture, wind-based campaign map sailing, row-based ships have been partially determined by party size, inventory limits, price, boat classes, and all this is determined via polls that are held on the Discord. So if you do want to get into the further development of this, even if you're not a real true developer, you just want to really follow along and help grow this mod, please go ahead and use those links in the description. But this is a really amazing way to bring this concept of naval combat to life, especially the raids on coastlines, which I'll show you guys in a little bit here. So as this raid gets going, you can see there's already a party on the coastline ready to receive us. We go into shield mode as the soldiers kind of get ready to charge the beach to create that beachhead as this coastal raid gets underway. And you can see the guys just rolling out. Now, these are just some of the normal units from Bannerlord that are being used to test a lot of this stuff, but you get an idea for how coastal raids are going to play out in Bretwalda right now. So again, all this, in my opinion, is really exciting. To be able to get a really awesome naval combat system, to get a really interesting and immersive coastal raid system up and down the British Isles too. It's very, very compelling. So like I was saying earlier though, there are 6 individual cultures that you get access to with this mod. It changes things up. You're not going to have Khazate running through Cornwall. But you get access to the Anglos, the Britons, the Norse, the Saxons, and the Gaelic cultures of Dalrita. So you have a whole bunch to choose from. And each one of these will have its own troop tree. So what I want to go through now is the troop tree and how that will really progress into Bretwalda. Going into the troop trees, it's important to note that a lot of this is placeholder, right? It's pretty much said, okay, well, we might be changing these things a lot. It really depends on, again, the future development of the vanilla version of the game and what they decide to do with each and every troop tree. So we'll talk about the Anglos first. You're probably wondering about how the noble lines will be done. That hasn't really 100% been decided just yet. And they're trying to see about how they can possibly even change how noble line recruitment works. So there's not much for me to talk about with that yet, because I don't really know a whole bunch. But every single faction will have their strengths, right? And again, that in and of itself is not solidified in stone just yet, but you can see Anglos have some chainmail use for their top tier infantry. They have some good archers in here as well, and they will follow a general aesthetic across each and every culture. But the Anglos, you give a nice solid progression downward on the left side to 2 different types of either spear or sword infantry, it looks like. With right now they said they're putting javelins in to mimic the ability to throw spears, and they're trying to see if they can work that up or around. But then you've got some archers on the right side for the Anglos. Here's a teaser now for the Britain culture tree. And again, very similar to the Anglo ones, you're not going to get a ton of really characteristic, random, different style units. Like when you look at Khazate or Asarai or Sturgia, it's going to be pretty similar. And this is what the mod team told me. It's very similar to Total War Thrones of Britannia, where things are, for the most part, very recognizable. Not a ton of difference from culture to culture, but with certain strengths within each culture, right? Like Norse, for example, we're going to talk about, are going to have a lot of axe soldiers, especially the Huskarls. But just to kind of talk about that ahead of time, so you don't look at these troop trees and go, well, it'll kind of look the same. Well, that's intended. That is intended to be very historically accurate. But you get some throwing spears here with Britain, you get some good archers, and then you get some nice solid heavy infantry there at the very bottom. Moving into the Saxons, we get a much different looking tree. We now have some archers on the left side, we have some heavy infantry on the bottom, but we also have our first little preview of a scout style cavalry unit. Now, it's important to note that at this time in history, especially throughout the British Isles, there was not a ton of cavalry. It was hard to put a horse on a boat and then traverse across the ocean and land on the British Isles with said horses. The horses were primarily used to transport people to battles rather than fighting on top of them. So you will not be seeing tons of cavalry charges riding through the foe like you will with Volondia. I want to make that kind of apparent. Also with the Saxons, you'll know that there's not a ton of very heavy infantry. This is again represented to kind of reflect how things were with the historical stance of the Saxons at the time. Closing out our troop section, we're going to be discussing the Norse now, and as you can see, a lot of heavier armor as you get into those latter 4th and 5th tiers, with some lighter archers, not the best ones in the world here. Their big stopping power was the Norse Huskarl, a very terrifying unit, especially when you take a look at things like the Battle of Stamford Bridge, some like 200 years later. But nonetheless, these are going to be your Viking Norse shock troops with heavier armor, with axes, 2-handed axes, just ripping through the opposition across all the British Isles. And those are just some of the early troop trees. So let's now move into the roadmap to give you guys a sense of some of the features that are coming with Bretwalda as development continues. So the roadmap ahead of us here has been laid out by the Bretwalda team, and it's pretty extensive. So we have phase 1 as the closed alpha release, and anything with little X next to it denotes that it is either done or at least in a position that it's waiting for more stuff from the vanilla game to just be modified on top of. And we have a lot of the troop trees have been knocked out for the exception of the Gaelic cultural troop tree. We also have all of the cultures solidified across Anglo-Saxon, not Anglo-Saxon, Britain, Norse, Pict, and Gael. We also get some custom music coming with the mod, some nice new load screens, a duel system that is yet to be added into the game, some nice new scenes for major city maps and villages, and I'm going to show off some of that stuff as soon as we get into the kind of conclusion portion of this. You'll be able to see some of those really cool custom created scenes and whatnot. Battle maps, again, pending really the 1.5.10 or 1.6 terrain map system that's going to be added into Bannerlord Vanilla. And then some other stuff here as well as models across helmets, armors, axes, and spears. For the most part, they're using stand-in models from the base game until they create those custom assets. Now, as we move into phase 2, we get an increase into the naval system, boat purchasing and upgrading, as well as improved water simulation. A campaign map that finalizes English settlement locations. What they were saying is by creating the actual map that they're using for Bretwalda, it broke all the settlements. So they kind of had to build things up from scratch. The troop tree for the Gaelic tribes, or Dalrita basically. Music, more custom music getting added into the game. The spear AI improvements, they really said they wanted to work a lot on that, especially the ability to throw spears and how they really are, I guess, managed by the AI when it comes to shield walls and actual conflict. More scenes added in, more models, some C# programming with war horns, really awesome stuff right there. Character creation improvements coming in too in phase 2, which looks pretty promising. But as we jump into phase 3, we get a lot of the same stuff, right? But the big one is right here. The Norwegian and European coasts being added into the game, so you get that full-on Viking conquest experience, but in Bannerlord. Some more music, scenes, models, and C# programming added in with phase 3. Phase 4 is the first public release, that's how exciting that could be, with some Norse and European coast settlements placed. Again, more custom music, scenes, models, and C# stuff as well. But this gives you a really good idea of the roadmap that Bretwalda has in mind for the development of their mod. But for the most part, that summarizes the new Bretwalda mod and its current development stage. For the next little portion here, I'm going to be showing off some of those scenes and architectural custom creations from the Bretwalda team. So you just enjoy those at your leisure. But one big thing that they did want to communicate is that the beginning portions of the game are going to be overhauled, because right now in Bannerlord it just becomes pretty much running from town to town doing tournaments. But in Bretwalda they want to really integrate the freelancer mod into the game, so you really do feel like you're coming up from nothing to something. Like there actually is a good solid progression system that isn't just repetitive, that requires you just to do the same things over and over regardless of the character you create, like you do in Bannerlord. So it's really exciting to hear them take on not only a big custom overhaul, but on top of it, fix a big issue that is Bannerlord's current iteration, in that the beginning of the game for every character is the same. It's like a stock carbon copy. So it's really exciting to see them tackle that as well. But like I said, guys, plenty of times here before, I'm really excited for this mod, and I'm super excited that the Bretwalda team chose me to show off a lot of this exclusive content. So a huge shout out and thank you to them once more. If you want to get involved in this mod, please jump into that Discord, jump into that forum if you have any kind of developer skills, especially across 3D modeling, musicians, C#. They need all the help they can get, and the more help that they get, the faster this mod can actually come to fruition. So thank you so much for watching here today. If you're as excited as I am, go ahead and leave some comments below. I'm sure that the mod team will be watching the comments, taking a look at what you guys say, what your feedback is. If you have any questions, by all means ask. If I can answer them, I will. If they can answer them, I hope that they will. But guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below. Again, all that action you hear in every video helps out a ton. But have a good one and take care.